say you wanna watch a drama. You say you wanna watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama, or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler, so you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point, which is based on a blog of the same name because it's like lightning. Grease lightning! You thought I was going to say black lightning, didn't you? You think you know us that well, don't ya? My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, CouchPotatoesUnite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, exclamation point, hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and now Amazon Music to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including, but not limited to, Supernatural, Orange is the New Black, Gotham, the Marvel shows on Netflix, Stranger Things, iZombie, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, The Good Place, The Crown, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, and Riverdale. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Fuller House, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, How to Get Away with Murder, Will and Grace, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Star Trek 50 Plus series will talk Season 3 of The Next Generation. We'll be launching new panels covering Outlander, the Breaking Bad universe, This Is Us, The Orville, Big Little Lies, The Good Doctor, Call the Midwife, and The Animaniacs. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll revisit one of the all-time and most watched classic sitcoms, MASH. We'll become embroiled in all of the crazy plot twists of revenge. We'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends, and we'll cry Bazinga for Big Bang Theory. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers and comedy shows and Comic-Cons and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these semi-quarantine times. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to our website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just don't zap us, clap us, or trap us. Make like Jefferson Pierce and give us another chance already. Today we are around the water cooler and continuing another of CPU's podcast series. This series does not have a fixed number of episodes like other series we do. Rather, it is ongoing and covers a number of shows that fall under one large umbrella, expanding into a quite popular universe of comic book adaptations. With that said, today's episode is episode 25 of our DCTU series, in which our DCTU expert panel discusses the DC television universe, i.e. television programs adapted from DC comic book properties that have morphed and expanded into one television universe. In this 25th episode of our DCTU podcast series, we return to the water cooler to add another show into the lineup, owing to the heretofore discussed Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover of 2019. The show is specifically Black Lightning. In tonight's episode, we talk Seasons 1 and 2. Season 1 aired from January 16th, 2018 to April 17th, 2018, with a total of 13 episodes, while Season 2 aired from October 9, 2018 to March 18, 2019, with a total of 16 episodes, all on the CW. Black Lightning is an American superhero drama television series developed by Selene that is based on the character of the same name, created by Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eden, featured in publications of DC Comics. Cress Williams stars as the titular character alongside China Ann McClain, Nafessa Williams, Christine Adams, Marvin Crondon Jones III, Damon Gupton, James Remar, and Jordan Calloway as of Season 2. Originally in development at Fox, the project was given a pilot production commitment in September 2016. In February 2017, Fox passed on the project, and the CW subsequently picked it up with an order for a new pilot script. The series focuses on Jefferson Pierce, played by Williams, the principal of Garfield High School in the city of Freeland. 9 years before the start of the series, he was a superhero called Black Lightning until he retired after the effect that his vigilante life had on his family. Jefferson is forced to become Black Lightning again when the 100, Freeland's most feared criminal gang, led by Tobias Whale, played by Jones, takes over the city. In January 2019, the CW renewed the series for a third season, which premiered on October 7, 2019 and ran for 16 episodes. The third season, which will become the next episode in our DCTU series, features the series' first tie-ins with the network's other DC Comics television series, known collectively as the Arrowverse, leading into Williams' appearance as Black Lightning in their Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, which results in the series' setting retroactively established as part of the Arrowverse's new continuity. Thus, today, in the 25th episode of our DCTU series, our DCTU panel, namely Kyle, Hillary, Spencer, Kristen, and Nick, returns to focus specifically upon seasons 1 and 2 of Black Lightning as we catch up on this series, and specifically the seasons preceding its inclusion in the Arrowverse, recently rebranded the CW-verse, although I like Arrowverse much better. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of the first 2 seasons of Black Lightning and will without doubt discuss sensitive plot points from these seasons and other past seasons of this TV multiverse. So for those of you who are not caught up on Black Lightning, or really any of the DCTU at least till the end of January 2020, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel! How are you?
Good. Not too shabby.
Are you ready to take on, new to this DCTU series, Black Lightning?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
what
mean, you made us, so we're going.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, enthusiasm bomb.
The spice is going to come out in this one, folks, but before it does, we have to reintroduce the panel. We have to start a new show in this DCTU series, which means that you'll have to remind everybody who you are by your first name, not your whole life story, and then tell us how you came to watch Black Lightning. What made you start watching? They're all going to have the same answer. What kept you watching? They're all going to have the same answer. How did you find out about it? They all are going to have the same answer, or maybe slight variations here and there. And then you get to rate your interest in Black Lightning, the first 2 seasons, based upon the standard CPU character question, which changes with each show we do. And the Black Lightning character question for these first 2 seasons goes like this. Do you, panel, adore this show? You love everything about it, from its faithful representation and depiction of race and culture to its unflinching social commentary, from its heartfelt family-centric storytelling to its bomb superhero couture and associated gadgets. Besides, you'll watch what you want to watch because you are a grown-ass woman, like Anissa Pierce, aka Thunder. Do you love this show because it's a part of you, to the point that you can't avoid it? It's everything you are, and even though it has its ups and downs, you still wouldn't trade it for the world because this is your life, and you'll live it by any means necessary. Also, the music slams, like Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning. Do you like this show because you particularly like the main character? In your opinion, he's a good man, a great hero, an upstanding gentleman, and watching him and his family feels like watching family for you. Plus, you're especially mesmerized by all of the tech, and especially enjoy that Black Lightning's inner sanctum is the basement of a tailor shop, like Peter Gamby. Do you like the show's lighter side, when it can take moments to laugh at itself and not be so serious? The show's darker sides frighten you, however, even if you are stronger than you know. Who's kidding who, though? You're going to watch anyway because you hate being kept in the dark, like Jennifer Pierce. You don't love everything about this show? You wonder how a superhero vigilante can effectively hold a family, and therefore this show, together, and you're not convinced that it's possible. Still, there are parts of this show you like, and you'll at least keep watching because your family also watches it, like Lynn Stewart. Do you watch this show because your friends watch it? And while there's some definite intrigue for you here, you also question your friends' judgment, or judgments, more often than not, when it comes to how successful this show really is when telling its story, like Bill Henderson. Or the only thing you can stand about this show is its villain, who is delightfully complex, nuanced, and ruthless. Otherwise, you wouldn't care if the whole thing burned to the ground. You want nothing more than to see Black Lightning buried like Tobias Whale. Who would like to start?
I can go first.
Thanks, Nick.
No one else is jumping at it.
Well, you jumped in first. So tell us about yourself.
I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Kylie made me watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Kylie made me keep watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Henderson. It's fine, but I definitely would not. I don't think I would have gone on to season 2 if it wasn't for the podcast. There's things that are... I don't hate it. Like, there's definitely worse seasons of Arrow, I feel like, than this. So, it's okay. But I definitely would have taken a lot longer to give season 2 a chance. And I might not have given season 2 a chance.
All right. Welcome back, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
And I started actually watching I started watching Black Lightning actually live the very first episode. I think I was the first one on the panel to watch it. I just like comic book shows, and I watched probably 6 or 7 episodes, kind of lost interest in it, wasn't going to go back to it at all. And then the crossover happened and Black Lightning appeared, and I actually messaged Kylie and said, hey, does that mean we now have to pick this one up? To which she said, yes. And my heart dropped a little bit. Yeah, it's not my fault. I would agree with Nick. I would say I am Henderson. And yeah, I'm going to keep watching it because I have to. But we'll get into the meat of all that in a little while.
All right. Welcome back, Spencer.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
So my answers are pretty close to Nick's. Kylie made me start watching it. Kylie kept me watching it. And now I'm here. As far as the character question, yeah, I'm definitely Bill because we're all in this together. But I also am a little bit of Jennifer because I do really like the show's lighter side. I love it when it kind of makes fun at itself, when it's not so serious. Those moments definitely remind me of like Legends of Tomorrow and things like that. And also I agree with Nick, there are seasons of Arrow that are worse than this show, and I did feel like season 2 was a little bit better. Also, I really enjoy the soundtrack. So I guess I'm a teeny bit of Jefferson just because the music is excellent in this show. It's by far my favorite soundtrack out of any of the Arrowverse shows.
All right. Welcome back, Kristen.
Thanks.
I am Hillary.
Hi, Hillary.
And hi. And per usual with the disclaimer, Kyle will talk in a minute. He's my husband. Hey, guess what? You're moderating and you're my sister.
Hashtag Hillary's disclaimer.
Pretty much. Pretty repetitive answer to what's been said. I do agree with Kristen. The only upbeat part is the music, but I'm really into music, so that is like one positive thing I have to say. But really, I'm watching it because we were asked to. I love all comic book related things as well, but we are very fortunate enough in this day and age to have a really wide variety of comic book properties out there. And when you're a person with limited time, you want to save that time for some of the better ones. For me, this one isn't really that, and we'll get into that more later. So I'm basically watching it because I'm supposed to, and I'll keep watching it because I'm supposed to. And so I'm also Bill, and I like the music.
All right. Welcome back, Hillary. And I like the music.
And I am Kyle, Hillary's husband, as she said.
Hi, Kyle, Hillary's husband, as she said.
And I'm going to say, Bill, also, I don't hate the show, but I don't love it at all. It's very vanilla for me. Like Hillary said, there's so many other superhero shows. Like, this isn't the worst we've seen in the Arrowverse, but it doesn't come anywhere near the highs we've seen either, or the stuff Marvel's putting out, or movies.
Even other DC stuff.
So, yeah, I kind of fall somewhere, like, yeah, Bill, it has its aspects. Like, I like Cress Williams, but otherwise, like the comic, this just rips off too much other stuff from Luke Cage.
Are you Kylie made you and Kylie made you as well?
Pretty much. We weren't going to watch it because we didn't have we weren't invested in the character.
And we already knew that it really wasn't getting the best reception as it is. So,
All right. Welcome back, Kyle. And of course, my name is Kylie. I moderate as well as participate in this, our DCTU Carnival. I started watching Black Lightning because if you know me or you follow the website or you listen to the podcast or you talk to me about my unfortunate addiction to TV, you know that I look to see what's coming out in a given TV season. And our season that we measure, by the way, is June 1st to May 31st. I feel like I should clarify that now because people are releasing TV all year long, and then COVID just made it crazier, so there you go. And I knew in the 2017 to 2018 season list of pilots that Black Lightning was coming out. I also enjoy most live-action superhero shows and was inclined to pick it up. I anticipated that somebody somewhere in the Couch Potatoes Unite would want to talk about Black Lightning, even if it wasn't the Arrowverse. And at the time, Spencer is correct. He was the one who kind of watched it first, and he also asked back then, should we be covering it? And I said, it's not part of the Arrowverse, so we might someday later in the future, but until it becomes part of the Arrowverse, it's its own separate thing. It might have a separate panel someday. Well, as the story goes, life goes on, and the CW and Warner Brothers, I guess, decided to have a crisis on Infinite Earths and collapsed everything into one universe, and Cress Williams appeared in that crossover, and now, as has been said, we are talking about Black Lightning. So, welcome to that. I keep watching because, well, I also moderate this panel, but I am enjoying the show. It is not my favorite of the Arrowverse shows, but it is not my least favorite by any stretch of the imagination. I would be most likely a Gamby. I actually enjoy the main character quite a lot. I do enjoy the fact that the inner sanctum's in a tailor's shop. That seems very practical in my eyes. And I'm going to give a little aspect of Jefferson because the music slams. I wrote that with myself in mind. If anything else, I'll probably be the more positive one on this panel, but if nothing else, the music is really very delightful each and every show, and I just wonder, they must be spending the money on the music rights, or maybe people are just giving them the music rights. But the soundtrack to the show is awesome, and I wonder if somebody made one. But that's where we are. Oh, goody. So there's four of these things, or 5 of these things belong together. This is going to be awkward. Hashtag awkward. And now, because we're taking a first look at Black Lightning, we have to do the star scale, or as Hillary calls it, the star business. How does the star scale work? Basically, the panel goes around the water cooler and gives Black Lightning a star rating, which goes according to the following descriptions. Is it 5 stars? Holy smokes! You have to watch everything. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the best superhero show you've ever watched. It astounds you beyond all capacity. 5 stars. Is it 4 stars? It certainly seems intriguing and you're going to keep watching, but you see possible pitfalls in the premise. Is it 3 stars? You're going to give it one more try, or maybe more tries because you have to. There are things you like, things you don't. You're still going to at least give it the old college try to see which things are allowed to flourish. Is it 2 stars? You only watched part of it. They can't do that, but you've only watched part of it, or maybe you're just really mainly bored. There's some intrigue or fascination that could hold it together no matter how unlikely, but you can't convince yourself to at least enjoy it if you have to watch it. Haha. Or is it 1 star? Pass on this one, guys. It's a snoozer. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It's not your cup of tea. Black Lightning is not the superhero you were bargaining for, and so therefore, don't watch it. 1 star. Who would like to start?
1 3/4.
1 3. You think you're funny, don't you? You would be incorrect, but why 1 3/4?
Well, we're still going to get into that more,
But
but
you qualify your star rating like every other time.
I think that it's not, I still think I put it down with, again, there's so much content out there. It's very CW-y. Again, it's still, I will say that it's trying to follow the comic book characters, but it's doing so in a way that still feels very soap opera-y to me, which I think I've mentioned a lot in Arrow as well. And a lot of the beats of the story are already following things that happened in Arrow and things that happened in Luke Cage. And even though I also like Cress Williams and the music and things, I'm not a fan of it. I'm bored most of the time. I would not watch it. It's not my cup of tea. So that's why. 1 3/4.
2 stars. There are some things that are intriguing, but very hard for it to keep my attention. Like I slogged through the entire season.
I'd go 2.5 for me. Season 1, I was so bored. It took me forever to get through it. Season 2 did get a little bit better, especially towards the end. So the back half of season 2 is when my attention was I actually was watching it 100%. I wasn't on my phone or working or doing something else. So I'm interested to see where things go for season 3. So that's where my 2.5 stars comes in.
I would say that when I first started watching it live at the very beginning, I would have probably said 3 stars. But it dropped very quickly for me. And I would say at this point, it's a 1 star. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, and I'm only watching it for the podcast.
I would say 2.5 stars. I don't think it's a bad show. It's not boring. It's just, I don't know. There's things I like about it, but then there's things I don't think the villain's great. I think there's a couple of things they kind of force just to move things around.
Mm-hmm.
Does that conclude your remarks?
If I kept talking, it would just be a deeper dive, which we'll get into for the chit-chatting later.
Well, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars.
Wowza!
Yeah. I enjoy it. I went in with precisely goose egg worth of expectations. Spencer had already talked it down, so I thought, okay, I'm basically walking in as a chore that I've set for everybody, including myself. And it surprised me a little bit. I didn't think it was any less boring or less engaging than Luke Cage season 1. And I know there's going to be a tremendous amount of comparisons. So I guess if I did walk in with anything, it was that mindset in the back of my mind. Like, we're going to compare, the 2 primary television shows that focus on people of color and a super...
Well, I mean, they were created by the same... Never mind.
Well, I know that was going to be an issue walking in. So I guess the piece that I thought about was, Luke Cage was kind of the standard I was setting it against. And in many ways, I find Black Lightning more fun than Luke Cage was. Now, the villain is still... He's a really good concept for a villain, but he's a mustache twirler, so we'll talk about that. I like the daughters, but there is soap opera because it's on the CW, and we'll talk about that. But there are parts of it that I like, and I agree with Kristen. I think it gets better as it goes, as opposed to getting worse. And so now I'm interested to see what happens. But I think it's intriguing, and I think there are more things I like than I don't like right now. And that's kind of where I'm landing, is the 3.5 stars. Like, I wouldn't hate my life for watching the whole thing so far. Not any more than I have some of the other entries, even though I love Stephen Amell, hearts. So, now we've already talked about, did you like the show right away? Most people did not. And I would say even my interest was slow to start. I would also agree with Kristen's assessment. It took me a while to get into it. And I know that that's partially why I was a little backed up on this one, because I was like, whoop, I let time slip away because I haven't been giving myself my TV watching devoted to Black Lightning. But with all that said, we'll talk about season 1 first and then season 2, like we have other introductions into our series. Season 1 introduces all of the characters. You have Jefferson, who is Black Lightning. He's been retired. He comes back into the fold. He lives his life as a high school principal at a mainly black high school in what I believe is an Atlanta equivalent in the DC universe, because I saw a Georgia address at one point, and they have peach cobbler, and they go into peach orchards at one point. You have Anissa, his eldest daughter, who develops superhuman meta abilities. She can make herself really dense and be super strong and kind of impervious, not completely impervious, but she also heals fast, and she takes on the Thunder persona. You have his ex-wife, Lynn, the scientist, who leaves him for a while because the vigilante lifestyle is too traumatizing for her. You have sassy Jennifer, who develops superhuman abilities over the course of the season. You have Bill Henderson, the cop, the detective, who actually Jefferson is friends with in real life, doesn't know at first that he has this secret identity. You have Tobias Whale, who is an albino African-American. He is the villain of the piece, very corrupt ex-politician, also the leader of the 100 gang, has designs on world domination and power, as they mostly do. And then you have Peter Gamby, who goes affectionately by Gamby or Uncle Gamby. He is like the Alfred of the piece, only he's more hands-on. He creates the tech. He's a former government agent, and he is the one who kind of took care of Jefferson as a child and later trained him and coached him into being Black Lightning upon discovery of his superhuman abilities. Those are the characters. That's kind of a synopsis of the season. Talk about season 1. What did you like? What didn't you like?
I like the stylistic elements of this show. I thought the pacing was far better than Luke Cage, which is why I didn't lose interest as quickly as I did with Luke Cage. There's a lot of problems. For me, as anybody that's listened to any of these podcasts on the superhero shows, a superhero show is only ever as good as the villain. And this villain sucks.
The pacing is interesting for me. They reveal information in a weird order or in offhanded ways. Like when the show started, I was like, how is Gamby, the stupid tailor, doing any of this stuff? Just because he's a tailor, he can make a super suit? Then the first time they mentioned that he's part of the government, it's so offhanded as if we already knew it. It just feels weird, but it moves things, keeps things moving. So I don't mind that it's keeping things moving. It's just, I don't know. It's not the best laid out with revealing stuff, things like that. And in a way, because it kind of took me out the first couple times of how Gamby can do any of this stuff. And that was like 3 or 4 episodes. So I just thought that was weird. And they also do other weird things like where Lady Eve is supposed to be this other bad guy that is just, we don't know anything about her and she's dead and who cares? So that just seemed like a waste of time.
Yeah, I completely agree with Nick. The pacing is better than Luke Cage, I'll agree with that. But again, the order in which they reveal information is really confusing. It took me 2 times to actually try to start this show. I watched episode 1 the first time through and I was so confused and I didn't really know what was going on because I'm not a comic book reader. I'm not familiar with any of these shows. I'm coming in as an off the street viewer, essentially. And I actually had to give it a little bit of time, go back and rewatch episode 1 to feel like I actually knew what was going on. So I can see how the creators maybe have learned a thing or two since Luke Cage, but they've also made some really weird blunders. And I agree with Spencer too. A superhero show is only as good as its villain, and Tobias Whale is one of the worst villains. He's annoying. I don't like him anytime he's on screen. And the fact that they killed off Lady Eve so quickly was confusing. And I don't know, it left me with more questions than answers. She seemed more compelling than he was.
I just want to clarify that the creators of the 2 shows are different. It's the comic book writer that's the same.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification.
So I don't know if this is more in season 2, but they try to use a chess metaphor with Tobias, and that doesn't work either. Like nothing he's doing seems overly strategic.
He's very generic. Again.
They made such weird decisions with Tobias Whale, because in the comics he's a very big Kingpin ripoff. Like he looks exactly like Kingpin, acts exactly like Kingpin, but they created him 10 years later as a carbon copy. But then the show takes all this plots and stuff from the villain Brick, who the Arrowverse wasted already, as a generic gangster. So it's really weird. He's not even like he's 2 different characters mushed together, but then played very cartoony. He's very
and watered down versions of the better versions of the character, both sides of it.
Which is
the problem I have with the show is the comic series only ran 11 issues. He has no villains. He then appeared randomly in Justice League Comics as supporting, but he doesn't really have a base to build on.
Yeah, for me, the pacing between this and Luke Cage is actually kind of similar. It's just, to me, Luke Cage is a little more... I like the stylistic choices of Luke Cage more. I like the way Luke Cage sets things up more. Again, to me, this just feels like I can get where, like at some point it does start. I'm not going to say that it doesn't start to get better. I agree with that. But to me, it's already got kind of a low bar to get better from. So I still think, for me, it's not too differentiated. So it was just, it's hard to build that investment at that point, because even though there were bad seasons of Arrow, I still at least already had an investment in Arrow and the characters, and it's still its own thing. Whereas this is a little bit, even though, like I said, I like the actors in the show. That's the other thing that I'll say. I like a lot of the actor choices. But yeah, for me, pacing it's not that different, unfortunately.
What I like about the show, and I guess why I'm a little bit more invested, is there's a few reasons. The first is that I like the fact that this is a superhero tale that tells it from a place of everything is kind of fairly normal. There's a trauma still, as often superheroes are dealing with, and that's how they get there. That's not always the case, but is a lot of times the case. And when we start this story, Jefferson is a dad. He's a dad with 2 kids and a fairly loving relationship with both his girls, and they're all very animated. I enjoy the actors quite a bit as well. I'm not a big fan of the Lynn character, the mom. It's hard to be sympathetic to her because I feel she's a little two-dimensional, and B, I think her sing-song of this was just way too much for her to handle or to deal with, and then all of a sudden her kids get powers and she can handle it. That felt a little cheap to me. But I like the fact that it's telling the story of a man who actually has probably a more established normal life that isn't confusing. You're just trying to figure out why he left and why it's so important for him to come back. I also think Tobias as a concept is actually a pretty intriguing one, just because of who he is and how he relates to the community and how he relates to not only people who are black, but people who are white. I think there's a lot of potential there. The problem is I actually think that actor, whose history, he's a rapper prior to becoming an actor in this show, I don't think he's equal to the task. So he feels very much like a mustache twirler. And he's campy. He's played cartoony. And the more cartoony he's played, the more cartoony the whole show feels, because otherwise you do have a lot of interesting stylistic choices, especially in season 2. I also like the fact that I know absolutely nothing about him, as opposed to walking in with any kind of prior knowledge. That was the same sense of discovery I had watching the 4 Marvel shows on Netflix. And even Luke Cage. What I liked about that show was what I was discovering about Luke Cage and how he fit into the larger universe. And it may be shallow here, and it may be something that they're developing, but I like figuring it out. So there's a lot of problems with the show. I'm not gonna tell you that it's by any means perfect, because it's not. But I guess I felt a lot more resentful of Luke Cage season 1 than I did of Black Lightning season 1.
I think that this was paced better, but I actually think Luke Cage was a better show. And we all know how I felt about Luke Cage.
Yes, you compared it to watching grass growing's more fun. And
Well, it's because it was so slow.
Yeah.
But I felt like the storytelling in Luke Cage was better. And it still had the problems with villains not being that compelling. But this villain is so not compelling. It feels like a very generic version of stuff we've seen before. There's nothing original about him.
Yeah.
And it kills the interest for me.
I will agree. I think both Nick and Kristen mentioned the quick eradication of some of the side characters. So like you've got Lady Eve, you've got Lala coming in and out, you've got all the various henchmen, some of whom have probably more deeper backstories that probably would have been worth exploring. There's one story in season 2, which we'll get to, that felt completely out of left field, and I was like, how does this relate to the larger framework, and why do I care? Because they introduce these new bad guys who are not Tobias. Tobias features in almost every episode, but they take the time to seed a villain of the week or an antagonism of the week, and then tend to just drop it in kind of an ignominious way. That I don't like at all. I think they need to stick to a story and maybe not feature Tobias quite as much.
Well, and Tobias has a series of henchmen that they don't give us too much of, especially the first one, I think Joey Fatone or whatever. I can't.
That's from Insane.
Whatever.
Joey Fat One.
Joey Toledo, which is not even close.
I feel like it's close.
No.
They don't have much of an on-camera relationship. Time-wise for Joey, and he dies, and that's supposed to be... He mentions it as being motivating, like he wants this revenge. And then Cyanide, which we see more of Cyanide, and they tell us how he rescued her, but I don't know, on screen there isn't much. Cyanide doesn't really talk. It's just like, why are we supposed to care?
I kept wondering that about Cyanide. I was like, man, she's really intriguing looking. She's got kind of like this goth chick thing going on, but who the heck is she?
And we don't really find out, and I don't know. It's like this is a big chunk of the show is Tobias a whale, and it's also interesting, and maybe they'll play in, I don't know, I think they lost their chance to play into it more, of like Jefferson is over the revenge of it from his dad being killed by him, but he has to help his daughters not go down that road. And I don't think they played that off well to get a good enough payoff either. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Tobias Whale. It just wasn't enough to carry the show.
Yeah, especially like Lala. In the first couple episodes, they built up that he has a past with him, and they build him up so you think he's more, has a little bit more menace, and he's more interesting. And then they just use him as a device to try to make Whale look more badass by killing him, and it doesn't work. It's the same problem Luke Cage did when they killed Cottonmouth, introduced the weaker villain.
I will agree with that. As you're absolutely right, Kyle. I will totally 100% agree with you. I thought he's still around. More interesting villain, all told. I don't understand what's going on with the tattoos. That's later, but it is kind of the same thing where you weren't. In Luke Cage, you weren't sure you liked Cottonmouth, but you knew that Cottonmouth was far more charismatic and interesting than the next guy, Diamondback. That's his name, right? Or am I confusing this with Kill Bill? Okay. They're all named Snakes. Was there anything that you really could say that you liked other than the soundtrack?
I mean, I like that it tried to have a little bit of a harder edge than the other Arrowverse shows. Like, it's not Punisher level, but it still has a little bit more brutality than the other shows. So I definitely appreciated that they weren't just like cookie cutting, and they did try to give it its own flavor. But without a really strong villain to tie that together, it falls apart. But I did like that they did try to make it have a different tone to it.
I like the idea of Jefferson being the principal and dealing with that balance. I don't know how much we're getting into season 2, but they introduce another very two-dimensional character that makes me not care about that storyline as much anymore either. Yeah, and maybe it is because of the villain. I do find the family dynamic, when it doesn't get too soap opera-y, being more engaging and more interesting. Like with Jefferson and his daughters. You don't see too much of them dealing with that with the other Arrowverse shows.
Every season of an Arrowverse show, they show their alternate thing, like Oliver Queen being the head of Queen Consolidated. Or
we kind of already did explore, sorry.
Or Supergirl at Catco. They introduce these lives, and then by season 2, they randomly drop it for a government organization that helps out the superhero.
Yeah. No, I was saying I like Jefferson with his students. I like those moments.
Yeah.
Not just personal life. And then I like him with his daughters because we're starting out with it in that journey in this show, and it isn't, we have to pull a daughter from the future and kind of force you to care about this character, like in Flash. I think that this is doing that story a little bit better, and that it gives me a little bit more hope that it'll keep being a little more entertaining as we go on, especially if they keep Tobias locked up for a season or 2.
My favorite scenes in the show are the ones that are between Jefferson and his daughters, or between the sisters themselves. And really, when it comes, not the soap opera-y stuff as you talk about it, but the stuff where they're trying to deal with these new discoveries on top of being normal, and that sort of the extra stakes. I mean, I think you see that a lot in other superhero shows as well, but for some reason this show is taking those moments a little bit more deeply, and I think I appreciate that because it does balance out some of the grit. And it also, I don't know, I find the 3 main actors, Cress Williams, Nefessa, and now I can't remember the other one's name. I think the 3 of them are China. I think the 3 of them are very, very good. And when they're on the screen, I'm more interested. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Tobias, I keep going back to Mustache Twirler. He's basically, and I'm going to do the next thing, ha 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 ha, kind of a villain. And that
Let's put you on the train track, see?
Exactly. It gets a little repetitive and tedious because they have a lot of seeds in Tobias, and I just don't know that they're giving him the seeds because I think he can only play one dimension, this guy. This Marvin Jones. I think he can only play one dimension, and that becomes very, very boring very, very quickly.
Another thing that gives me hope is I feel like the Agent Odell character, there might be more of a story they can tell with what he's doing and the Markovians. I don't know yet.
That's season 2. We're not there yet. Do you want to talk about season 2 or blend them all together?
I think blending them together is okay in this case.
Well, I would only mention that in season 2, we're kind of elevating. So Nick already mentioned that Jefferson gets replaced as principal of the school because we should mention Khalil. Khalil is Jennifer's ride or die, apparently. They're longtime friends turned boyfriend, girlfriend kind of a situation. Tobias, in one of his more nefarious feats, decides to inspire a shootout that Lala carries out when there's a peace march in the streets. He shoots the reverend of the local church, and he shoots Khalil, paralyzing Khalil. Tobias has this sister Tori for all of 3 seconds, and Tori tells Tobias to convince Khalil that it's all Black Lightning's fault, to bring Khalil over to the fold. And this is even more hammered home when Tobias invests in an artificial spinal technology that allows Khalil to walk again, but also involves injecting him with poison serum that he's able to shoot out with darts. Painkiller is what he goes by, and he actually attacks Jefferson in this. Well, he attacks Black Lightning, but it happens at Garfield, and of course Jefferson's not around, so the school board thinks Jefferson fell down on his duty when in fact he was wearing the costume at the time. We have the introduction of the ASA because there's this drug floating around called Green Light, which once taken turns people into metahumans or superhumans. Anissa has taken on a third identity called Blackbird, where she's basically using her powers dressed incognito to rob from the rich and give to the poor in a Robin Hood-like way. I like that somebody actually calls her Robin Hood at some point. Jennifer discovers her superhuman abilities but is unable to control them. She's basically a nuclear reactor inside one 16-year-old's body and is finding it very hard to control it. So she's introduced to a meta named Perenna, who basically tries to walk her through holding all of that massive energy in. Henderson, and one of my favorite parts of the show so far, actually Henderson might be my favorite character, just because I love it when he says, "Come on, man." Just say it to my face. And then he takes off the mask. Anyway, he figures out that Jefferson's Black Lightning, and then kind of they start working together, which is fun. Tobias tries to get the pod kids. The ASA tries to get the pod kids. Other people try to get the pod kids. But then we find out about this Markovia plot that Nick is referring to. We meet a couple of people like Dr. Jace, the sociopathic research scientist, and Cutter, Tobias's ex, apparently, who was real good at using knives. And then Gamby fakes his death for a while. And then also there's this 2 or 3 episode arc in the middle of the season to which I previously referred, where Anissa discovers these 2 sorts of backwoods clans, kind of like Hatfields versus McCoys, but with race tied as an aspect to it. And a metahuman leads the white faction, and they're called the Sanjay, and that one is very off topic. And I'm going to have rants. So that's season 2. Now go proceed to blend.
Just to go off with your Bill Henderson, I feel like in season 1 was very bland, and I think he was, I don't know, we weren't supposed to know what to think, and I don't think that came off well, but I do think as time goes on and we see more, I do enjoy that character. And then you also mentioned Dr. Jace, who I don't know if it's the actress, the writing, or both, but it's not great, not compelling for me.
She strikes me as mad scientist, but it leaves me wanting more because that's all we know. She's a mad scientist who really loves to experiment on humans without the proper data to She clearly breaks all the protocols. Why she clearly breaks all the protocols has not been satisfactorily explained.
I'd agree with that. One of the other problems I have with this, and it's probably just silliness, but I don't like Black Lightning's suit.
Oh my God,
I feel like
I was hoping someone else was going to say it.
So he pops out of the shadows all the time and like surprises people. He's lit up like a Christmas tree.
Like, and he looks similar. Like, it kind of works yeah, I mean, it works for a comic book situation. I mean, he is kind of like a product of the 70s and everything.
But in the comics, his suit looks like Luke Cage's yellow
I know,
suit. It's
I
just
know.
like a big flared shirt.
I was getting there, man. But like, this is like, so, I 100% agree with Spencer. It's so unrealistic. It just, yeah. I mean, it's just one of the many things that bother me, but it just looks ridiculous. And yeah, he can't even walk in it, man. It's
so shiny and
it's
flashing,
so
and it
everyone
makes no sense.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't even. And then it's funny because a lot of the scenes are taking place at night because they're trying to make it look like Arrow. And so it's like, then you're just standing out even more. It just is so ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
He spends a bunch of time in the air. He looks like an oversized drone.
I agree. It's just so, it's like for a small child. I don't know. I want to help the CW people.
I think they're shooting at night so that his powers will show up better. I think it's the contrast of the blue electricity.
I wasn't saying I didn't understand it. I'm just saying it's still dumb. Yeah.
It seems very cartoonish. The suit would work in a cartoon. It doesn't work in a live action.
Especially with the tone they're trying to go for.
Well, they are kind of also using that 70s sort of the blaxploitation film, like your Shafts and other things. Mm-hmm. They're using that as a backdrop, which is, I guess, I don't crawl into the minutia of the shiny suit too much because they've stylistically created a presentation that is already based on a presentation that's supposed to be over the top. So I guess my brain shut off suspension of disbelief for that.
Mitch, I mean, I suppose it's to a point we have to do that. But if you're going to surprise a bunch of criminals in the middle of the night, showing up in a flashing, shiny suit is probably not the best way to do it.
It's not flashing. They're solidly blacklit on his suit.
With a bright yellow swish. May as well be sponsored by Nike.
Not that shade, man. Otherwise, there'd be suits. A lot of suits. The product placement in this show is clearly by Apple, Spencer, not Nike.
Yeah, that's true. I think Cress Williams is really good, actually. I enjoy his performances. I could do without a lot of the peripheral and then give me a decent villain. And I would watch that show.
That Cress is the highest point of the show, honestly.
Gamby is
an actor, so it shows. It makes a difference.
Gamby's not the actor who plays Gamby. It seems all very surface level. I don't know.
It's a cheese fest with him. Everything with him just comes across as so very cheesy, so very forced.
Yeah, a little stereotypical too.
Yeah. I think that's quite a bit of this show in general, is that there is a stereotypical element, that there's nothing fresh about it.
No. So, and maybe that's what I was trying to say more so. It just, maybe I wasn't being articulate, because when I don't like something, I get a little bit more verbal, like diarrhea-y, but I think that's there's nothing fresh about it. Everything about this is pretty, like, it's just generic. It's been done before, even within the other Arrowverse shows. It's just drawn a lot from a lot of different things. I'm not saying that makes it like the worst show I've ever seen, but it makes it hard to have that same, again, level of consistency.
I feel like,
I suppose when your source material is only 11 episodes, that it's going to harm you. And that's probably the same problem that Batwoman's going to end up with.
Well, and like you pointed out before, even with Supergirl, like how many times did we talk about with it? And Supergirl has way more still in comparison. So, it just goes to show you that some things probably shouldn't have their own separate property. Like maybe it would work better. Has more of him. I know that they're trying to make it diverse and more inclusive, and I'm all for that. I just think that they're doing it a disservice, though, by not giving it something that stands out. If it's generic and what we've already seen, then it's not setting anything apart. It's just hurting it more.
Right. You don't do diversity a service if you give us diversity in a way that is disinteresting.
Yeah. It's not actually diverse. It's just kind of a mixture of what we already know. That's all.
Diversity has to go into story as well as, gender, any of those things. It has to be interesting across the board. And there are a lot of diverse properties in the TV world that are extremely interesting. This is on the complete other end of that spectrum.
Well, yeah, and even within comic book properties as well. So,
like I said, there are seeds here. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that it's not derivative. I think that's the word you're looking for. Derivative. It's drawing from a lot of different things. I think it's more a problem of they don't know how to water those seeds in a way that makes this show feel original, because there are aspects to it. Here again, I'm going to go back to Tobias. I know we're ragging on this character quite a bit, but there's a lot of interesting interplay there, because I mean, I think it's not a mistake that the comic book creators made this man an albino in the context of the story they're trying to tell. The problem is they haven't properly interwoven that into the story they're telling on screen. You get a little hint of it because he clearly feels great animosity towards both African Americans and whites, and he says a lot of racist things about both of the groups, but it's not something that they've really tied into his backstory, his family history, his motivations for what he does. There are things in here that could be original or could feel original, but they just haven't developed them properly, which I think comes to a writing issue and maybe quite possibly the only having 11 issues of the comic book problem. It's the kind of thing where I see the potential, as our Once Upon a Time panel would say, #potential, #drink, but it stumbles over its own potential because certain things are brought out more, and other, like Tobias's, in every episode. He doesn't need to be in every episode, but he is, while other things are not brought out enough, and they could be.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. And for me, if it's following the same beats and the same direction that the other CWDC shows have gone, I don't know. I'm not trying to be not hopeful, but I don't know. Those haven't all gone in the best directions either, and they have tons of material to draw from. So,
I think this raises an interesting question, which I don't think is just Black Lightning related, but we can raise it here because I think it's going to become a refrain as we come back to all of the DC shows, not only the ones that have been on, but the new ones, because this isn't the only new one we're going to be talking about this year. We've got Batwoman on the roster. And then CW has ordered to series Superman and Lois. So that's now going to come up in the next round of DC, in the 2021 round of DC shows that we cover in our reviews. So at what point does the fact that Greg Berlanti and his team having their hands in every show and every pot become more of a detriment than an actual help?
It already has.
It already has.
Yeah, it's
I admired Berlanti when he started this universe.
I agree.
I think it's tried to grow too much with too many properties that don't have enough source material to give them something for the viewer to invest in. And spreading people that thin, it shows, because you are seeing, thematically at least, the same stories across 6 different shows now. And that's maybe for us, if somebody is just watching Black Lightning and hasn't seen any of the other DCTU stuff, this might be a really good show to them. But for us, because we've watched Arrow, because we've watched Flash and Legends and all of the rest, we're seeing the same stories played out with just different actors and slight tweaks.
Yeah.
That may be why we're not liking the newer stuff as much.
I mean, that's kind of why, the Netflix Marvel shows work. They tried to give each one its own flavor. Like Jessica Jones was that detective show, and Luke Cage was kind of that noir street, and then even Iron Fist did the whole corporate thing
and mystical thing.
Yeah, and mystic. They were superhero shows, but they didn't feel the same as the superhero going out and beating up gangsters every night. They had their own tone and flavor. And the Arrowverse shows now, it's just there's no really good creative voice to give them that. They just all feel the same.
Which is, I think, why we really, as a group, tend to like Legends more and more, because it does feel separate. It's
the one that stands out as being different.
Yeah, and I think they're looking at there might be a little bit of like, how can we recreate what the Marvel Cinematic Universe did with these properties, but they're trying to make a 24 episode season instead of a movie and then weave them all together, and they're not doing
you can also tell, I mean, there's a very deep-seated group behind the Marvel properties. Like, they understand the Marvel comics. And often I feel like the people who are involved behind these DC, at least the CW ones, I want to exclude other DC properties, really do not know much about it. They're getting very surface level. I feel like they're mainly trying to draw in, I feel like they're actually trying to draw in like a specific age group. Which it's also kind of in some ways, I don't want to say dumbing down to, because that's wrong phrasing, but it almost is that way sometimes. So
I think you're right, though. When it does seem like they're going towards a demographic, and when you do, that weakens what you're trying to do. I think the best way to bring in as many audience as possible is making a good, solid show and putting the work and creativity towards it.
You don't even have to be like you and Kristen have said many times that you're not as familiar with this. You just enjoy watching it because you enjoy watching it. But if the content isn't there, it just kind of...
I think this universe started out very, very well. They did have that depth. It just seems as it's grown, and they've obviously had to add more writers that aren't... Berlanti was definitely invested in comic books. I feel like they've gotten away from that, and he's doing more and more things. I mean, he's got shows on Fox. He's got shows on many networks now.
Netflix.
I think it's diluted too much. It's very watered down now. You look at seasons 1 and 2 of Arrow, seasons 1 and 2 of Flash, they were really good.
They were like cinematic level good.
And you're right. I think they tried to grow fast and do the same thing as Marvel. The problem is they are also handcuffed. You can't have your Batman. You can't have your Superman. You can't have your Green Lantern or your Wonder Woman. So all of the best properties in DC are off limits for these guys. Whereas with the Marvel universe, they've been allowed to use some of the biggest stuff, not in the TV, but in the what they're trying to copy with this in the Marvel movies. They were able to use everything. For the TV, they can't. So there's a lot of things like Black Lightning only having 11 episodes of source material. Sorry, that was a random.
But I mean, like, even with The Flash, The Flash is a very huge part of the DC universe, and they have a lot of things that they can do with that they've made. And I think even, Spencer, you were the first one to start to show some disheartening opinions even with that they've started to make some missteps there. And they have that catalog that they can use for the most part. So I still think it really boils down to a lot of the creative teams.
I think they need to think more.
And the network.
I think the network has to get creative with how they produce their content instead of trying to have 4 or 5 full seasons of these different shows. They need to pace them out different. Because, like, if you look back into the Marvel on Netflix, it wasn't a full 24 episodes. We had how much time did we have in between seasons of Daredevil? Obviously, that didn't always work. Jessica Jones season 2. But it at least gave these teams time to dive in and think things out and plan things. It's really hard to have a villain that's supposed to be strategic if the writers don't know what his strategy is either.
To be quality over quantity, especially with these shows. No matter how many original sources they have to pull from, it always needs to be quality over quantity in today's streaming age.
Yeah, streaming age. That is playing a very big role with a lot of this stuff. So I agree with that statement.
Yeah, I'm now starting to watch a lot of content on Amazon Prime. And some of the stuff they're putting out is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Some excellent stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So as we're getting some of this better content elsewhere, I think the networks are really going to struggle to keep viewers.
I also think CW is going to struggle if Disney Plus does well with their Marvel shows, which WandaVision...
they're going to put all the effort they can into making sure those are solid shows.
And Disney just doubled down on streaming. They're pivoting their whole strategic planning to their streaming material, which Star Wars and Marvel on Disney Plus is going to kill CW.
Well, and here's the thing. The CW property is already backing their deal with HBO Max. So now there's characters that are off limits again to the CW because they only want to use them on their HBO Max series that are coming out. So we're going to see the CW shows get shut in again, like they were in the 3rd season of Arrow, and they're going to be in a box in what they can do.
That's no good.
They're not doing much with their open box anyway, but
Well, I agree. I think they're taking on too much. I think diluting it, watering it down is probably the most apt description, because when you spread yourself too thin, you end up starting to show wear and not the best kind of quality, or the best, if we're going to spread it, make a metaphor out of butter, some of your toast isn't going to be well buttered, and that's basically what we're going for. I think that Black Lightning has potential in a different way. If this had been one of the only properties they were introducing and they put some time and effort into it, a little bit more and above and beyond what they've been doing, it might actually come off better. I also think there's just too much going on in that DC universe right now. Now, we know that, and we'll be talking about this when we get to our Supergirl episode, we know that Supergirl has one more season left. Of course, that's probably because they're introducing Superman, and Melissa Benoist is also pregnant, so there's all of that rolling into it. But
She's had her baby.
Oh, she's had her baby? Well, there you go.
had the baby.
Yep, they delayed production not only because of COVID, but because of her pregnancy.
Oh.
To give
It was like 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't catch the baby news, but all the more, she now has an infant. So, a newborn infant, and probably a TV schedule is not conducive to taking care of a newborn infant. So, I don't know. In the end, though, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because I feel like this refrain is going to start coming out in every DC episode that we do. Maybe not, but maybe not Legends, possibly not The Flash, I don't know, but at least with some of the other shows that we're covering, I think we're going to hear this refrain a little bit more and a little bit more. So I just thought I would pose the question now, since we're talking about Black Lightning being somewhat of a recycle fest from the other DC comic book adaptations. Well, this is a first look, so I'm going to ask you the first look questions. Oh, golly gee, hocus pocus. How does Black Lightning compare to other TV shows in general, other superhero shows, or other DC properties? You've already mentioned the Arrowverse shows, but how does it compare for you? Where does it rank? What would you say?
You really want it like ranked?
No, not a real ranking. I'm just trying to give you some talking springboard, Nick. I'm moderating this piece.
All right.
You might remember that.
I'll give you the English metaphor of a soccer league. They are at the foot of the table with very few points and not a lot of hope of making it to the championship game.
I do not speak any of this sports language, English or American.
There's a table on your field?
I know what's going on. Especially not soccer. I don't understand it. There's a net and there's a ball.
Trust me, some people out there will understand every word I just said.
Okay, great.
I understood what you just said. There's not a lot of hope for this show. I agree. It's very low bar. It's kind of at the bottom rung. I'm sorry, Cress Williams. It's not your fault. You are good. like, I'm sorry, but it's kind of weak, man. Like it could be better, but I don't see it improving much more than what it's already at. Like, I mean, maybe it will get sort of more interesting, but it's not going to be like some earth-shattering thing that's going to make, I don't think me, probably not him, be like, oh my gosh, I got to tune into this now. It's amazing. I don't think that's going to happen.
Can we mention Crisis?
Yes.
No.
The most interesting Black Lightning has been is when he's being an older, jaded mentor to Barry Allen for like one of his 2 scenes. In that regard, as like a retired superhero who gets pulled back in, I would love to see him interact more with like Team Flash and these other characters, because I feel like he works better in that respect, as opposed to a retired superhero in a world where he's pretty much the only superhero. So it makes it more interesting going forward to see him interact with these other DC characters that he couldn't before.
I kind of feel like he would make a very good supporting character to the rest of the universe, but doesn't need his own show.
Yeah, sadly, though, we won't even get to see him potentially interact with any of our other leads until at least Black Lightning Season 4, which will be out, I think, probably next year. So,
yikes.
Yeah. I read a little bit just of the Season 3 synopsis, and where Crisis falls, it's so far near the end of his season, and since nobody else crossed over into his show, we won't even.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I just feel like they'd have to completely retcon a lot of stuff.
And they maybe might.
Maybe they will.
Yeah,
but then they still have to make some sort of like at least like continuity sense a little bit. I don't know.
But I agree with what you guys said as far as where it's ranked. For me, this is kind of towards the bottom of the superhero shows that are out there on the CW right now. I agree that, these first 2 seasons were better than some of the lowest seasons of Arrow for sure. But I really don't see this show running the distance like a lot of the other ones on CW have. I'd be very surprised if this show lasts into a 5th season, just based on the viewing of the first 2. I'd be even more surprised if it makes it to a 6th season series like Supergirl did. I think this is going to be a very short run.
I thought I even read that they were already thinking about, because it already has really low ratings, canceling it.
I was surprised to see there was a season 3. I'm even more surprised to hear that there might be a season 4.
There is a season 4. Season 3 has aired. That's what we're covering in our next DCTU series episode. Season 4, as Kristen said, will be premiering sometime in 2021.
Wow.
So I'm
not excited.
I forgot to mention in season 2, the season 2 portion of the discussion, I really liked the titles, how they did the book of titles that they interspliced into. I thought that was
pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked that visual. But the Book of Blood is the one that I'm talking about, where Anissa finds the pregnant girl and they go into the backwoods and it's the Hatfields versus the McCoys. That felt like so the second season was 3 more episodes than the first season, and that coincidentally is about the same number of episodes as that story arc. And I thought to myself that one could have not been there at all. It didn't advance anything for the Black Lightning plot. It didn't even advance Anissa's character, even though she was the primary player in that whole, because she went to, medically tend to the pregnant girl. And then there was a fairly interesting sort of villain that was the leader of the Sanjay, who was superhuman and also super racist, and I thought, okay, she could be interesting, but then she died. They threw her up against a hook and she was impaled, and that was the end of her, and I was like, well, alright, she was way more interesting than Tobias, and they just killed her. So I had to rant that, because I thought, man, this could have been a 13-episode season without that 3.
I think
I agree with that, too.
I agree with that, and I also think that it was too many. It was one or two too many episodes of the arc of Jennifer and Khalil running away.
Ugh.
I thought that lasted too long.
I liked Jennifer. Surprisingly, I did like a little bit of Khalil's arc this season, but that just was too long for them to be pretending to run away when we all knew that they were going to come back, because there's a season 3 and they're in it.
Especially, I get her being tempted and maybe leaving, but her going back that far, that long, and taking that long to go back to her parents, who I feel like one of the main points of the show is how supportive they are, that it kind of took away from it. Oh, and the other thing,
their fast daughter, so they're supportive, but she's the fast daughter, and they actually say your fast daughter to each other. Your fast daughter did X this time, so. I don't know.
I don't know how much I really actually like the character of Perenna or not, but I just like that she was Cousin Pam from The Cosby Show.
She was Cousin Pam!
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know her.
I know, I was like, what? I've seen her, and I've seen her. Where have I seen her? True.
I think that's all I have on Black Lightning.
All I heard from those last few statements is that even with the 16-episode season, there's a lot of filler in 16 episodes, which is shorter than the other DC seasons. Just throwing it out.
Except Legends. Legends is also
except for Legends. But Legends, again, is a totally different tone, and we've already talked about that, and it works for them. Black Lightning is following the same tone. I would say that it's trying to follow the same tone as the more serious, the other ones. And it's just, you guys just said it. Like, there's already a lot of filler in season 2. That doesn't bode well. I'm just saying.
Right.
I won't make you rank the shows so early in our 2020 run. And also, this is the first of the 2 Black Lightning episodes we'll be engaging in, because our next episode is season 3. But what I will say is that, yeah, Black Lightning, if I were to say there was a sample population of 10 superhero shows, and 10 was the best one, and 1 was the worst one, I'd probably put it at the 4 level. That's kind of where I'm at. Again, when you walk in with, because you already gave me low expectations, Spencer. You were like, this isn't good. I stopped watching it. I don't want to talk about it. I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to like it. And then I was surprised to find that I liked some of it. So thank you, Spencer, for your help in that regard.
It's always good to go in with low expectations. If you don't expect anything, then you get something.
That's what I'm saying.
A clarification question. Is Black Lightning stealing power from the city?
He draws the electricity.
Essentially, yes.
Jennifer,
I think we should stick with it the way Nick said it.
Jennifer puts it out. He draws it in. It's the easiest way to say it. Where she gets it from, we're still finding that out. Maybe that's season 3. Because she's supposedly very powerful. They haven't answered why.
She gives off a Phoenix vibe to me.
Yeah, didn't they say that essentially she's like a generator? Like it's her own cells that are generating all of this?
I don't remember them
Still
talking
have
about
control.
cells, but that sounds... I do remember them talking about generator and battery. I didn't remember them talking about her inner biology.
This show gives me a vibe of, like, don't think too hard about how any of the powers work. Just
and I was just actually reading an article about his suit. Supposedly it lights up so that way people can't see his face and recognize who he is.
Oh, I thought that was his mask.
Yeah, exactly.
The mask that does a whole lot of disguising. Yeah.
Well,
It's a Clark Kent mask. It's a Clark Kent mask. It's basically glasses with a little more shape and ridge.
No, but they have a little comment that it emits something so that you can't focus on his face.
Yeah, his costume is just ridiculous.
It lights up because
Normally the costume, if anything, the costume is like a high point for me because that's what I'm signing up for. I want to see that superhero shit. I'm sorry. It's just kind of, it's
the difference between Gambi and Cisco.
Oh,
imagine being a superhero and a guy says, I can make you a suit. You turn up all excited and he reveals that. You're probably going to electrocute him.
He didn't, though.
But he should have.
That does raise an interesting question because they've really hammered hard on the fact that Gambi can, in fact, be a tailor on top of his many government agent types of skill sets. But then the costumes, aside from the embellishments, because I do enjoy the lightning on Thunder's costume and the little... Aside from the embellishments, this is what he comes up with. That does make me question. I want to see his regular tailoring. So, where is he getting this from?
I don't.
Which is like, and then it brings, because in the comics, his brother is a tailor who makes all the costumes and gadgets for every single DC villain, the Riddler, Joker, Penguin. All their themed gadgets, like Captain Cold's outfit that can withstand the cold of his guns. He's a far more interesting character because he's morally neutral. If you pay him money, he'll make you anything. They should have had a character like that in the show.
Well, now that
yeah, even that would have
I
given
agree.
it some more depth.
That would be good.
Yeah, that would have given it some more depth. It would have given us something to, it would have set it apart.
And would have tied it better to the universe, too, even just by mentioning other people. The only person that they ever mention in the 2 seasons is Supergirl to establish that Black Lightning is in fact on Earth 38 with Supergirl.
After Crisis, doesn't that not matter?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I was only mentioning that to say that was literally the only mention they had to tie it back.
They haven't gotten to Crisis yet by the end of season 2. That doesn't happen until the end of season 3.
Correct.
Right. But I don't know. I guess that's hope. Like, that's why we're not getting that many mentions.
I'm kind of wondering whether the reason that Black Lightning appeared in Crisis is so that they could push for a season 4. If he hadn't appeared in Crisis, would the show just have gone away?
Well, I think that was a Hail Mary to get all these people watching The Flash to say, oh, I didn't really realize this show was out there. I'll give it a chance.
Didn't when Black Lightning was announced, one of the people working on it was like, this is separate. It's not part of the unit. And then I think something changed with someone and they're like, oh no, it is. Because I think they realized the benefit of, I don't know.
Well, I think Hillary said it earlier. The show's been on the bubble for a very long time. It is the lowest rated of the shows. I think Batwoman gets better ratings. And that show's got all kinds of trouble. So
More so now than ever.
more so now than ever.
I mean, really, they all do. Look at the problems The Flash is having, too, with Elongated Man.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it was a Hail Mary, Spencer, if you were the one that, or Kyle, whichever, who just said that. I think it is a Hail Mary to save it for a little while longer. But I would also agree with Kristen's assessment that unless they can find a way to somehow interweave it into the Arrowverse retcon style in a way that's compelling, I don't know that it'll happen. And they're probably doing that. I mean, if you're talking, we keep hammering the 11-issue comic book arc that then got canceled. If they've run out of story out of the source material, maybe they need to draw from the well, and so they threw them in the well.
And please, and she's not talking about the Lazarus pit, so don't use that crap again.
Not the Lazarus pit. I meant a literal well. Not one that revives you.
You know what? I knew what you meant. I'm just letting those writers know that I mean it. Don't get back there.
Serious now.
Hashtag Hillary serious. Nick, were you trying to talk earlier?
I was just going to say, we know it's almost over if one of the characters, like, ends up on the Wave Rider or something. That's usually...
Oh my gosh, that's kind of true.
One of them will get trained by the League of Assassins.
Also possible. You know,
Dear Lord.
They're very low for this show, apparently.
This is what I'm saying. I'm sticking with my 1 3/4. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that segues nicely. Well, let me ask the 3 questions. Although I already know the answer to the third question, but we're still in first look. And I already know Kristen's going to say she doesn't follow creators. Does anybody else want to ride the I don't follow creators train?
Me.
I jump on that train.
Yeah, I just go to what I think looks interesting.
Yeah.
If it happens to be the same creator, then hopefully that's a good thing. Yeah.
Are you going to keep watching?
Yeah.
Only if you say we must.
You must.
And that's a yes for all of us, I think.
I mean, you know what? Maybe someone out there really digs this show. So,
that's
sorry.
what we said about Luke Cage. See, you got to put it into perspective.
Well, now I feel bad about what I said about Luke Cage. I'm taking it back.
We're going to have to tell the Marvel people. Hey, Marvel's, if you've watched or if you've listened to the Marvel's Defenders series, you heard it here first, folks. Hillary took it back.
I'm just kidding.
And then she took back to taking back.
I know. What?
That is some of these writers. She can't make up her mind of what to do.
I'm still processing what Spencer just said. I'm taking that. But I still think I gave Luke Cage a way better Star Business rating than I gave this. So.
It wasn't way better, but it was better. Yes. You were more in the 2s for Luke Cage.
Okay.
You were.
This might be the lowest rated show that I've watched.
Okay, but Black Lightning or Gotham?
Oh.
Spencer, you were harsher.
I think Gotham at least had more. I was harsher on.
You were harsher on Luke Cage.
Okay, for me, the first 2 seasons of Gotham are all right, but everything after that's pure garbage. So,
at least with Gotham, you had interesting villains.
That's true. They didn't last, and they didn't.
No.
They didn't stay alive, and they didn't maintain their initial bend for any reason, and they were not canonical one way or another.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. I was already invested in those characters, so I'm still gonna rate Black Lightning lower because I just can't get invested in. For me, I can't. I'm just not feeling it the same. Like I already felt
to put Gotham into perspective.
What?
I was just trying to put Gotham into perspective.
Here's the funny thing is, essentially DC is already rebooting even Gotham. They have the new show about the Gotham police force before Batman, but they said they're insisting it's going to tie into the new movie. and it's going to be on HBO Max.
What?
Hey, Warner Brothers.
I saw that. I was like, what? Gotham before Batman?
Like the exact same plot of Gotham. It's the Gotham Police Department.
You see what I'm saying?
A couple years before Batman.
I had not heard this, and I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
Yeah.
I swear when a Fish Mooney shows up, I'm going to go to California and burn Warner Brothers down.
Yeah, it's their... Hey, Warner Brothers. Stop it.
Warner Brothers, executives, producers, writers, whomever is out there who might be listening, tweet at us at CPU Podcast. This is Sarah's job.
Also, I mean,
She's
all
not on this
they're
panel.
worried about is making money. Hey, if you actually put together some really good properties,
Swamp Thing.
the money you would make. Yeah, Swamp Thing is a good show, but they don't care about that.
They might be starting to care more since they put it into a second run, but
And had some of their highest ratings for a premiere that they've gotten in a long time.
Because again, if you actually tailor it to people who, first off, you have to get the actual people who are fans of the material first. If you can get them engaged, like him, then he can get the rest of y'all engaged. And even still, even if it's a good show, you don't need to know that much about it to get fully invested. I mean, I've already mentioned this when we were talking about some of the other properties, but that's what happened with Marvel. It's not like all these millions of people who went and saw Endgame 40 times knew everything about the comic books. But yeah, I'm just saying, you could make a lot of money, Warner Brothers, if you actually tried to do.
Pulled their head out of their ass.
Yeah.
they need what's the guy's name that heads the Marvel? Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
They need a Kevin Feige of some sort that will pull all of the stuff together, come up with a strategic direction,
thing is,
and then fan it out again.
they have them underneath their wing. They're just not utilizing them.
What I was going to say,
They have a consultant, Jeff Loeb, who's written for DC Comics for years, and they use him as a consultant, but even in interviews, you can tell he gives them ideas, and then a committee shoots them down.
So that's the story.
They have some of the most brilliant comic book minds and some of them have worked on both for both companies. They don't properly utilize them for these on-screen properties. They don't. You can tell.
I mean, the story of the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a lot of execs saying, I don't know what you're talking about, but I trust your passion, and letting them take some characters and run. The average person didn't know who Thor was in the comic book world, and
yes,
they let them take that and run with it and pull these things together.
Well, and that's why the first season of Flash worked too, because they just let them have free reins with the comic books and didn't get involved until it started to get more popular.
Or Wonder Woman.
Yeah, they started, that's part of it too. They started trying to cobble together the DC movie universe and hamstrung the TV universe, and the movies are even not as good, except Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so Warner needs to stop screwing things up, and hopefully they didn't ruin animation.
Yeah, you don't have to catch up to anything, man. Just take your time and do it right. Again, or Joker, which is obviously a way different tone, but they didn't want anything to do with that. And look what happened there. I mean, there's too many instances of this happening. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to poo on the character of Black Lightning. There could be so much more potential, even with it being derivative, but it's not going to probably happen. It's already into the fourth season at some point. I don't see it making major leaps and bounds from what CW already's got going on. Just to tie it back to Black Lightning.
Good job. Oh boy.
Good move.
Here it comes. The question. Are you going to recommend, or would you recommend Black Lightning? Why or why not?
I don't think I would. At this point, there's enough superhero things. I mean, I actually want to watch Swamp Thing. I just haven't had time.
Well, so yeah, going back to what Kristen said, with all the streaming content that is out there, I mean, we're not in a network world anymore. We're not in a cable world anymore. All of the big leaders are streamers, and most people do not want to engage in something like that unless it really grabs them. And there's just better comic book content out there. They don't need to watch that to feel like they're getting their fix. So I would have
me. I'm in an age. We're at a point now with TV that there is enough good stuff that grabs you quickly that you shouldn't have to fight for a couple of seasons to get on board with the show.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of those shows where you kind of have to fight through it to hopefully see something good of it later on. I just don't have time for that.
Yeah, I don't think
I would recommend it.
I wouldn't recommend it at this point either, not unless it specifically ties into the rest of the DCTU post-crisis. I mean, honestly, I'd rather recommend Swamp Thing, and I haven't even watched it yet. It's on my to-do list in the next week or two. I'd also recommend Stargirl over this.
Yeah, legit.
Like, Stargirl was fantastic on the CW. You know, I know it was a re-air from one of the other networks, but
DCU.
Thank you. I would recommend that.
Or Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I need to watch Doom Patrol too. I'm excited to watch that. That's on my list
now.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Black Lightning, I just can't.
I'd recommend the Teletubbies over this.
Calm down.
What?
That's just plain ridiculous.
He knows what he's doing.
If you've listened to the first 24 episodes, you do too.
Yeah.
I've missed this. This combination of spicy people that are rapidly not liking the shows they're watching. It's so much fun.
Delightful. We are so darn delightful.
You are delightful.
You can't recommend it. Come on.
I think there's an audience for it. It's not a wide one. There's not a lot of people. It would have to be a very specific.
Well, and that's why it's probably not going to stay on the air.
Well, yeah. And if somebody random came up to me and said, should I watch, because I do get, as you know, now that people know I do this podcast, I do get that question. Should I watch X? They said, should I watch Black Lightning? I would say, you could watch Black Lightning, but here's what you need to know about it. And it would be a qualified recommendation, which isn't a ringing one, unfortunately. Not a ringing endorsement. Is there anything else that you wish to say about the first 2 seasons of Black Lightning? This is the quietest they've ever been. Spencer, you don't want to offer one of your ringing metaphors to close us out?
No. Really, it just comes down to there's about 36 hours of my life I want back.
Oh, that's not a metaphor at all.
I guess the last thing I'll say is that we are so unanimous for the most part on this show that nobody picked on me tonight or teased me about something.
Oh, holy crap! Okay, that is the best part of this whole episode. Seriously, because that defines it better than anything else that's been said so far. Oh my gosh, Krista nailed it! Holy crap!
Kristen didn't get teased, so therefore it must not be a great show.
That is the level and the bar by which we set our interest right there.
Cress Williams, if you're listening, I do like you and would love to
Oh my
talk
gosh.
to you.
Such a good actor. He's been in so many things.
I wish he was given better material for this show.
And he's handsome and tall. I like.
He is
Bill's
handsome. Like,
He is to look at.
I have to point that out every so often. You know, at least there's somebody nice to look at on the show, and he is it.
Yeah, Cress, call us. We'd love to talk to you.
Sure. Please do. Tweet at CPU Podcast.
We just told everyone to not watch his show.
I mean, I said you could. You said he couldn't.
honestly, he deserves better because he's a good actor.
He is a good actor.
So that's how I feel. I mean, yeah, an actor's got to work, and it is a title role, but come on, man. Like, you're...
Robert Townsend plays the school board. I don't know if you noticed that. He's been in tons of movies and previous TV shows and has directed a few of the episodes. He plays Nape, the school board guy that's like, you have your job, you don't have your job. He's kind of famous. I mean, he is very famous. I'm being sarcastic. He's more than kind of famous. Nobody cares! Okay, well, thanks a lot for talking with me today, Nick and Kristen and Hillary and Kyle and Spencer, about Black Lightning. It bodes so well for our next episode, which is about Season 3 of Black Lightning. But fortunately, before we get all up into that, it's time to roll credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me. Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kelsey Rezmer. Kelsey played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole kit and caboodle was engineered and produced by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. Give us stars, give us comments, give us reviews. Let us know how we're doing. Send us a message. We might just read it on the podcast. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what we should keep, what we should toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, CouchPotatoesUnite.wordpress.com, where we have a guest book, by email at CouchPotatoesUnitePodcast@gmail.com, or via our social media, Facebook, Twitter at CPU Podcast, and Instagram at CouchPotatoesUnite. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. We always have several more new episodes coming down the pike. Just listen to our intros, and if you miss old episodes or want to know in general what we cover, just find us. We are everywhere and searchable wherever you look for things on the internet. You can search for us, or you can subscribe on our website, our channels, our social media accounts. Stay up on our new events and episodes. Until the next time, Black Lightning is available in its entirety on Netflix because the CW has a contract with them, even though we never do. And Netflix, I don't know what else to say to you anymore. In the meantime, our DCTU panel will next reconvene very shortly, in fact, to discuss Season 3, the most recent season, of the self-same Black Lightning. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Bye-bye!
Bye.